Thank you. And hello and welcome everybody to the special board meeting of the Irvine International Academy. The date is February 2nd. I'm sorry, February 3rd, time flies, 2022. And I'll begin with a happy Lunar New Year, happy Chinese New Year to everybody. In a moment, I'd like to take roll and then we'll adopt tonight's agenda with a vote. Beginning alphabetically, would you respond that you're present, Brett Freeman?
Present.
Thank you. Doug Husen is also present. Ethan Kay?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Jolene Smith?
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Edward Watson?
Here, present.
Thank you. And Miller Zhang?
Aye, present.
Thank you. Glenn Rogers is not present. Would you note that, Mary Beth? He's unable to attend tonight.
Yes.
Have full formed quorum. And so wonderful. I'd like to have a motion. Everybody's received our special board meeting, which primarily is about organization of some new subcommittees. Would somebody like to motion to adopt that agenda for tonight?
I'll motion.
Looks like Miller got first and Edward got second. And thank you both for that. Let's do a roll call vote then. Brett Freeman?
Aye.
Thank you. And Doug Husen is a yes. Ethan Kay?
Aye.
Dr. Jolene Smith?
Yes.
And Dr. Watson?
Yes.
I like saying that. And Miller Zhang?
Yes.
Great. We have our agenda set. And once again, I'll just say on behalf of the entire board, welcome to all guests, those from OC, Orange County Board of Education, as well as every parent and then interested party as well. We get to begin with public comments, and we have one that has been submitted in writing. So we'll do that one when we run out of verbal comments. We have at least two on the list. Before we start, let me pause for a moment. And if you would like to be part of public comments tonight, would you unmute yourself, identify yourself to Mary Beth? You would be third on the list. We have two so far. And thank you. Wonderful. Then let's go ahead and we're going to begin with this. One thing I've been asked to do for housekeeping purposes is to keep our comments at 3 minutes. If you could time yourself in some way, either with your iPhone or your watch, what we want to do is be respectful of the person who's next. And so when we get to 3 minutes, Mary Beth will probably exercise the mute control. It's not to be rude to anybody, and it's not to stop what you're saying. It's just to anticipate the next person. So if you could do that, it would really be a great practice for us. And of course, if it's something that just doesn't make sense to end, Mary Beth, you have the ability to unmute them afterwards and let them wrap up the last couple of words to complete a thought. Who's first on our list?
Go ahead, Edwin.
Thank you. So I'm Edwin. I have a child at IIA. So since August, I have voiced concerns and complaints to this board about Mr. Scott. The board did not discuss or address my complaints in that meeting or to me. I was also never informed about the process for filing a complaint. Fast forward to last week's board meeting when public comments referred to a recent letter that was written anonymously by a group of teachers at IIA. That letter indicated complaints about Mr. Scott also. I suspect the anonymous teachers may have had the same confusion I did regarding how to file a complaint about Mr. Scott. After last week's meeting, I took it upon myself to locate the IIA employee handbook on the website. That is where I discovered that third-party complaints about staff are sent to the principal. Earlier this afternoon, also, Doug responded to one of my emails and referred to the same complaint process. However, going back to August, I was never pointed towards the employee handbook for complaint protocol. I also believe the documents under accountability tab on IIA website were not uploaded until after the September board meeting when parents were asking for documentation. I point out my complaints and the teachers' complaints in that anonymous letter because tonight's agenda reads as possibly moving the goalposts, attempting to alter any prior established policies. I'm wondering who requested this meeting and who created this agenda. I know the superintendent's office creates agendas with board input. I worry that the handling of complaints that were made prior to tonight will be delayed. I hope there will be an explanation of how these subcommittees will ensure that complaints are handled appropriately. Speaking of handling matters appropriately, it appears other teachers at IIA were made aware of the anonymous letter and are attempting to locate the other teachers of the anonymous letter. In my opinion, that behavior constitutes a form of bullying by those teachers, and is also irresponsible by the individuals that the letter was initially sent to, hoping to confide their complaints. I worry about a hostile work environment for the anonymous teachers. I'd also like to add that comments in last week's meeting referred to parents fighting amongst each other. I have been one of the most vocal parents at IIA. However, I want to point out that I have never called out any other parent or directed my comments or criticism towards other parents. However, I have been the target of other parents' comments. This recently came to a head when an anonymous person created a YouTube account and called me out in the YouTube comments of last week's board meeting. I cannot help but believe this was related to last week's board meeting, possibly by administrators of IIA. If you're listening, Jacob Lee, if you're real, that attack to me was deplorable. Thank you.
Okay, Annie?
Hi, everybody. May I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm zooming in from Seattle. So I have 5 points to make. Actually, my comment is also in the written comment, so you don't need to. I can just read it here myself. First one is about the donation from Helen and Larry Holt Foundation. And there should be supposed to be an attachment for the terms and conditions of that donation. It's supposed to be posted in the December meeting last year. And to this point, we still haven't, at least I haven't, nobody's aware when I asked around of that attachment. So I'm just wondering, you guys, so the board member went ahead to vote in the January board meeting. And I just wondering, I mean, since the terms and conditions are not clear to the parents, should the vote in the previous board meeting be invalidated? And point number 2 is regarding Mrs. Rocker. And she said on video herself that she's a friend with board member Miller Zhang and Chief Executive CEO Scott. So I want to know whether was a question in the January meeting, is it decision to hire Mrs. Rocker or decision to hire a curriculum director? If it was to hire Mrs. Rocker, shouldn't board member Zhang kind of excuse himself from voting? Okay. Point number 3, again, regarding Mrs. Rocker, she homeschooled her son who is on Asperger's spectrum. And from there, this is from my research, Mrs. Rocker runs several donation-based charter schools in Riverside County. And in her last school, that was Dove's Landing School. Pupils are not required to prepare or take California assessment tests, also known as CAS. That's all our students, about 3rd grade, including my kids, are preparing to take in March. So, and also I checked Mrs. Rocker's teacher credential include administrative services, multiple subject teaching, and bilingual certificate competence in Spanish to teach English as a second language. I want to know, do the board members think Mrs. Rocker has the best experience and credential to design curriculum for IIA, which is a Mandarin immersion school? Point number 4 is regarding Mr. Justin Ronald Thomas Walker, Mrs. Walker's Asperger's son, had criminal charges.
Sorry, Annie, the 3 minutes are up, so I'm just gonna mute you. Okay, but it's because 3 minutes are up.
Thank you. We do have one written comment, and I'll have Mary Beth read that one on behalf of I believe it's a parent that submitted it too, and that'll.
Can I also wanted to make a comment, and I can go after Mary Beth's written comment.
If you're ready now, Lynn, if that's Lynn.
Okay.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's have you go first, Lynn. Thank you.
Okay, let me time myself. Okay. I believe Michael Scott, the executive director of IIA, may have violated the California Equal Employment Rights, violated IIA's anti-nepotism policy, and exhibits a pattern of conflicts of interest. The most recent example of these violations is with the hiring of the new director of curriculum and instruction, Ms. Kennedy Rocker. Mind you, IIA is a public school and receives public funds. One, Mr. Scott did not obtain IIA's board approval prior to hiring the director of instruction and curriculum. Mr. Scott only was granted to hire a full-time HR personnel in December. Two, no job description, there was no job posting or any advertisement for this position. Three, there was no panel interview with qualified interviewers. Four, the most qualified person in the school, Principal Chuang, was out of the country on family leave during this hiring process. Principal Chuang is the most qualified person as he was the director or a curriculum director and teacher trainer at the School District of Philadelphia. Why was he not part of this hiring process? Five, Ms. Kennedy Rocker, as the substitute principal in January, interrupted class 3 times to pull out groups of students during instruction time to move and rearrange furniture. There was no performance scheduled inside the school. There was no hazard. And 6, Ms. Rocker has a personal relationship with Mr. Scott, as she had indicated on the last board meeting. This is clearly a conflict of interest, and it violates the equal employment rights. 7, Mrs. Rocker's qualifications are questionable. She had a school called Dove's Landing School that was established in October 2020. That school in 2021 had a total enrollment of 26 students. The average grade size was 2 students per grade. And the grade was kindergarten to 9th grade. I was unable to locate any California assessment tests for 2021 or 2022 and 2020. Ms. Rocker does not speak or read Mandarin, and IIA is a Mandarin immersion school. Board member 8, board member Miller Zhuang had a relationship with Ms. Rocker. He should have abstained from voting due to the conflict of interest. 9, Michael Scott hired Ms. Kennedy as a substitute principal and her son as a substitute teacher at the same time. This again violates IIA's anti-nepotism policy and conflicts of interest. This is a constant problem here under the management of Michael Scott, and I demand some answers. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't state it up front that oftentimes our board members are prohibited from answering. And so sorry, we're not being rude. We're just following the protocol. Let's see, I see a hand and it looks like it's Anthony. Mary Beth, you want to recognize?
Go ahead, Anthony. 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and happy belated Chinese New Year. Just to kind of chime in on what Edwin Chu was asking regarding the handbook, as far as complaints, because like I've noticed that as far as the complaints, it does go through the principal. So if it's like a teacher complaint, it goes through Principal Chuang. And then if there's a unsatisfactory resolution, then it goes to Doug Hewson, the chairman of the board. My question is, if there's a complaint against Michael Scott, who handles that? Number one. And that's all for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other verbal comments, we have one written that we'll read in, and then we'll move through our agenda. And thank you for all who did and in anticipation of our agenda, it's going to be nice because we'll be talking about the very things that many raised. So, Mary Beth, would you identify the written comment and read that in for us, please?
Yes, the written comment is from Mrs. McNally. She actually already started and she made 3 points. I will just finish it for her. She has a 4th and 5th point. So the 4th point is Mr. Justin Ronald Thomas Rocker. Mrs. Rocker's Asperger's son had criminal charges in the 1990s and 2013. Do the board members think Mr. Rocker is suitable to work in an elementary school? 5th point, I would like to express my appreciation to the board members who donated time, energy, and expertise and not even getting paid. However, a few board members don't have children in IIA and don't live in Irvine. I don't believe, I believe don't even reside within the US. Shouldn't the board have seats available to real stakeholders of IIA, such as parents and residents of Irvine? And that's about it.
Thank you very much. We have the opportunity, as is our tradition, and thank you for all the comments, by the way. I take quite a few notes on these, and just know they'll be duly noted by all of our board members. We like to have the pledge to the flag, and so if I could be so bold as to lead that out, I'm going to cross my heart and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. We do have a closed session item. It won't take, I don't believe, more than 10 minutes. And so guests and parents, if you want to take a short break, it is currently 6:19. We'll make this commitment that we won't start back without anybody till 6:30. 6:30 is when we're reconvening, even if we finish a couple minutes early. So you won't miss anything if you set that. I want to invite into our closed session. By the way, the purpose is a discussion in anticipation of litigation. I'd like to invite in Nick Driver, our consultant for charter schools, Kennedy Rocker as well. We want to hear some of your experience with charter schools. And then lastly, Dr. Scott, if you would join us as well. Mary Beth, would you put our board members together and those individuals, please?
Yes.
Great. All board members back. Thank you for patience, everybody. And we're ready now to move on with our open session agenda. But prior to that, we each received board members' minutes from our last meeting. If you've had opportunity to review those, hopefully, if there's any changes, would you let me know now before I ask for a motion to accept our last minutes? Any changes? Okay, could I have a motion to accept our previous meetings minutes?
I motion to accept. We couldn't unmute.
Thank you. And, I'll go ahead and second that. Then Edward with the first, and then Doug was second. Let's do a roll call vote. Brett Freeman.
Aye.
And Doug Husen is a yes. Ethan Kay.
Yes.
Dr. Jolene Smith.
Yes.
And Dr. Edward Watson.
Yes. Sorry, I have to stay muted. So I apologize. I think Mary Beth have to work overtime.
I understand. She'll keep on it. And then Miller Zhang. There we go.
I'm here.
As well. Good. So those minutes are adopted. Okay, open session is discussion, and then we'll call for an action. It's going to be individually. We're going to ask to form two new subcommittees within the governance committee. These will be temporary or ad hoc committees, and we'll be looking for leadership in them from the board, and then to build them out. And we'll discuss today the contents and who participates in these. Mary Beth, for everybody, would you be able to put on the screen the chart that will be a good graphic to get our arms around? That looks really great. Thank you. And so what we're looking at here is at the top, what already exists. There's a Irvine International Academy school board made up of these, and then Dr. Scott's a non-voting member. Then there's a governance committee that is made up of myself, Dr. Jolene Smith, Glenn Rogers, who's not present tonight, Dr. Scott, non-voting, and then we have Nick Driver consulting us. The purpose of the overall school board, of course, is to carry out the purpose of the charter and to enforce the policies. On that note, I'll just remind everybody, policies change all the time. It's very common for policies to be adopted, new ones, old ones change throughout the year. They don't change every day, but policies change because circumstances change. The governance committee then is the one committee that helps identify candidates to be on the board, interview them, and then present them before the board for addition to the board. They'll also take the notices when board members have to leave. Now we're talking below that, another standing committee is led by Ethan Kay. It's the finance committee, and that's a standing committee. And of course, currently on it is Glenn Rogers, myself, Kara Gallardo, Peter Shee, and then we have on a dotted line, Delano Jones, who is the head of our accounting firm. So that's a standing committee. Dr. Edward Watson, I think we are off and running, but you'll have to just kind of quickly confirm whether the education curriculum committee is a permanent committee or ad hoc. I probably could take a little bit of notice on that one.
I believe that one is ad hoc as well.
Got it.
But you know, we can obviously discuss that further.
Yeah, and if it turns into something that makes sense for this season to be a more than ad hoc, then we should do that. But thank you for already taking the leadership on that. I put some names, and this is a draft, everybody. I don't know everybody. I don't have the spelling of everybody's name right. I just wanted to get in a single chart our arms around what we currently have, and then why these two new subcommittees can be so essential. Brett Freeman, you lead a technology committee that recently made up of a number of parents and PTO members that helped us secure that grant. Next on your agenda, I believe, is a reshuffle of the members who would have skill in what? What is the next endeavor that you have for that, Brett?
So the next project is the website redesign. But yeah, this is an executive director subcommittee. So it's not a standing committee, the technology committee. And then the members are different. So the members, let's say for the Chromebook purchase that we did through the Emergency Connectivity Fund, were different than they'll be for the website redesign.
Great, thank you. And not on this chart, just to note, will be a school site committee as well. That's part of our charter. So with that in mind, we kind of get our arms around what is. Now let's talk about what some board members with some really great insights said could be very helpful to us, especially in the first 2 years, in making sure the board can, in a very, very professional manner, ensure our school follows our policy. So Mary Beth, if you could reveal a little more of the top of the chart, the other way, maybe. There we go, right there. Thank you. There's 2 proposed subcommittees. We'll deal with them one by one. The name of it can be changed, but I'll try to describe what it is and invite the conversation, because some of you have given me what I tried to put down initially here, and we could sharpen it up, and it's a working committee. So I call this the Policies and Procedures Subcommittee. It could be simply called the Policy Subcommittee. We would look for a board member to lead it, perhaps a second board member. If they felt a parent could be helpful, we're always wanting parents involved, but we recognize some of the board members are parents. This one, we would invite Nick Driver with his experience with charter schools to be a consultant. And then there's a new, I'm calling it a person role that could come out of our existing staff, or could be somebody new on our staff that fits within our administration team. A lot of times lands in the HR department, someone who is risk management responsibility, regulatory compliance officer. And so just hold that, we'll define that later. But this could be that subcommittee. I'll read what the working purpose is and then invite some of the sharpening, questioning from the board members. This team will create a unified process to document, review, and revise policies, handbooks, and procedures. So in a school, the board is policy level. Within the school, there's handbooks. The board sometimes will ratify those, but they're written by the staff, generally the executive director, the principal, could be the curriculum director as well. Then there's procedures. These could be lower level processes, and this team would know about all of these. A procedure could be this: what happens if there's a student that gets ill in the classroom and there's a need to clean up a mess? Well, that's a procedure, and it needs to be defined in a school. Someone has to define it. Well, this committee will continue to accumulate all procedures so that when we have change of personnel, they can be trained. Okay, so I'll finish it then and publish these then. And I think that's the best part. Some of our policies are up on the school website, but we want every policy, handbook, and procedure available, published for parents, public, and board members. This team, now this is a secondary function that could be, I think, address what we heard from parents earlier. And we've heard in a couple of meetings. This team would also receive, document, and manage all issues, sometimes issues or complaints that arise from the various sources. Parents, teachers sometimes will have an issue, and we'll see that on the other subcommittee, and staff that relate or that come to us through either the risk management and regulatory compliance officer or our principal, which is often the first line of engagement. I added that and principal because that was said today. I'm going to stop talking for a minute. Thank you for letting me kind of just frame what we're talking about. A special thanks to both Ethan, Brett, and then not here, Glenn Rogers, who over the last 3 months, you've been pushing toward this, and it's just the first draft. But would you each speak into and clarify what I've missed, maybe amplify why this is so important? Love to hear from each of the board members.
Brett, would you like me to go first?
Yes, please. Oh, sorry, Brett got to answer that.
I will start first. Thank you so much, Doug, for putting this diagram together. I thought this was excellent. It now shows what is our school's structure, not the operation level, but at the leadership level. Definitely, I'm excited to see these committees being actively being formed, and transparency so people can see who is in it, and then solicit interest from those who would like to participate. Regarding the governance committee, I really do appreciate, Doug, to acknowledge that the two subcommittees, there may be other task force given where we are in today's where we are as a school, but nevertheless, I recognize there may be some more subcommittees or task force, so we can just make sure we have the policy and procedures in place. And I think that's extremely vital, where I believe there's a lot of confusion right now of roles, responsibilities, of who the board, our leadership team, and this will absolutely help create more transparency. Not everybody, I don't believe everybody will necessarily agree to a certain extent, but at least we have something down so we can all discuss about the same thing. The one thing I do want to acknowledge is about the facilities committee. I'm not sure if there were other existing members on that. Maybe they were or not, but I really want to appreciate certain of the parents that have already volunteer their time, and we are working actively on certain projects on site, and really do appreciate. And I would just say something about the finance committee right now is been really glad that we have Delano to assist us with the reporting, with the accuracy of data, the facts, the accuracy, and more importantly, the speed of information. It's been a pleasure to work with him.
Thank you. And when appropriate, if I could receive an email, I'll make this a working document, and I'll actually turn it over to probably Mary Beth or one of the staff members to kind of continually update on our behalf. And so if we could get an email of the parents currently serving on facilities committees, that I just love this as a snapshot of what we are at any one moment. And the parents are the gold when they're participating. It's really helpful. Brett, would you amplify some of the things that you've been thinking about as well on that top box in that area as well?
Can you scroll back up to the top, please? So one of the items I think would be helpful to include within the subcommittee's purview is the terms and conditions of grants that are provided to the school and ensuring that those are met. When I look at this committee or subcommittee, I wonder who's actually going to be doing the work, and that is in terms of creating a unified process to document review and what, because I think that can be a challenge when you have 5 different people on a committee trying to agree on what that is or even put it together. There are going to be a lot of chefs in the kitchen. So I think this particular subcommittee goes hand in hand with the risk management regulatory compliance officer and the duties that you've outlined at the bottom of the page. I think it really comes down to this particular individual and their role and what they're doing and how the subcommittee can help them be successful. In addition to receiving, documenting, managing issues and complaints that arise from parents, teachers, and staff, and being a decision-making body. I think that would be a very important function of the subcommittee, but I really do wonder who's going to be doing the actual creation of the processes, who's going to be doing the auditing of the processes to make sure that they're complete, and then who's going to be auditing to make sure that they're being followed. It's really critical, in my opinion, for the school.
Clarify, what I heard is that, yes, board members have a role, but staff generally has the bandwidth and is paid to carry out many of the tasks. We can't expect a board member to be more than a board member. They're a voice, but yeah, that risk management, regulatory compliance person may be one of maybe more than one staff member that has to help really do this on a daily basis if it's a daily activity. So that's good. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this particular individual needs to be in contact with the sources that would be able to provide these policies, right? Like our complaint procedures and things like that. So where I see so many of the parent comments addressed, it's lack of following proper policy, if there is a policy even in place.
And our ability to communicate that to them rapidly so they go, oh, I see the framework. Yeah.
Yeah, so even addressing policies that we didn't follow before or policy gaps that we've had parent comments about that. So it doesn't seem like there's anyone who has the hand on what policies we're actually following or not following. And frankly, we're seeing it in the form of complaints from parents who are reaching out to us to say, hey, you guys broke this policy. You even agreed on it. Now you're breaking it. And they're letting us know. We shouldn't wait until parents let us know before we realize we've broken a policy. We can easily be doing that ourselves. And we should be doing that ourselves to ensure that we're compliant with how we should be, which is based on the employee handbook, based on all the policies and procedures of the school.
Thank you. That's just, I think, really great to hear for everyone, the motivation that you've had and the other board members for the importance of this too. I also heard from you that within this or somewhere, there has to be a responsibility for us fulfilling terms and conditions when we accept grant money. That's both to keep it categorically spent where it needs to be spent, reporting if there's reporting back. That can happen with federal funds too. And so let's see if this certainly they would I think this is a good spot. I'm going to enhance it, but if that becomes, because we're receiving so much money, a whole different committee, so be it. But right now, if there's no objections, I'm still going to package it under here. Thank you for remembering that because there was some inquiries about that as well. It had to do with way back instrumentation and was the right amount of money, or categorically it was the money available for instrumentation for music and things. So great insight. Edward or Jolene, any thoughts or in this area? It may not be your greatest interest, but certainly want to hear from you on this one.
For me, yeah, for the policy and procedures, I mean, it sounds good from what Ethan was saying and Brett. And I think a lot of this hopefully can help build that transparency that we've been talking about. And I'm sure some parent hopefully would like to also join in and support that. That'd be good for school.
Thank you. And yeah, parent or parents would really be instrumental. Dr. Smith, any thoughts for you? And then Miller, if you have any comments as well on this one.
I think it's always very important to establish systems and policies and processes, especially publishing that as well, so that everybody is clear and knows and understands their duties and their responsibilities. And that gives us more opportunity to really take action when this is established in this way. So I appreciate this communication as well as the organization.
Thank you. Nick Driver, I want to ask you a question. Do you perceive that we create this in a void, or could we lean in upon other entities to assist us in our the way that we're going to develop this subcommittee?
Well, there's lots of wisdom out there that's, in the 25 years of the charter school movement. So many other schools have been in the same shoes, or school board members have been in the shoes that you are now, and creating, because of events that come up, new committees or new policies. That happens all the time. It's very natural. So absolutely, there are organizations and individuals out there that can be helpful. I'd be happy to, to point the subcommittee or the committee in certain directions that will make the job of you easier, so that you're not just creating something, as you said, in a void. So you're not, recreating the wheel, but instead, leveraging all of the wisdom and knowledge that's in the charter school movement. So these kinds of policies, of course, are not specific to a Mandarin immersion charter school. They're for all charter schools, and so there are many other charter schools that have taken similar steps. And I applaud you for taking these steps. I think it's very thoughtful, even though it's in draft form. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we come to this point that it's a collective wisdom. At the same time, it's a collaboration for more details, more transparent. And also, I think I would like to thank all the participants. I think teachers and parents for their patience and then for their voice. But at the same time, that if this is a settle on, then that will help people that are not just a few people. It's just all collaboration. So yeah, I mean, Doug just fully support that, and then to move forward for that, and then also build a strong community that everyone that be part of it too.
Thank you, Miller. One of the things that's available to us is Orange County Board of Education that deals with a number of charters. And Dr. Scott, you have contacts with the Orange County Board and people that could also, as Nick Driver suggested, probably assist us in the formation, or at least some ideas in that. Is that correct?
Yes, we have great people at the board, plus other charter schools. I often call there's a dozen charter schools that work with Orange County, knowing what they need, and we often get information from them.
Great.
So Doug, sorry. Yes. I was going to add one thing, if that's okay. So, and I know this is probably already included in the word manage, but I think it'd be very important to also clearly indicate that we're also managing the closure, the efficient and expedited closure of the issues. Because I think we're going to find that there's going to be no shortage of issues, especially in the beginning, and we'll get better with time. But the key is how to efficiently process them and resolve them and ensure that they're closed out.
I noted that, and that could be part of the definition that I put in the purpose here as well, just to keep this group focused on that. I like that. In a moment, I'm going to ask the board members who would be willing to serve in this season. Prior to that, just to amplify what you said, Brett, this is not, again, the most important word on here is draft, but Mary Beth, if you would scroll down to page 2, I just want to go to the very bottom. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, pause. Yeah, that efficient and expedited resolution. At the end, we want to get to a place where we chronicle the answers that we give people so that we can give it to the next person who maybe is new to our school or has the same thing. And so even in my thinking, I said it to myself, try to put on paper a algorithm of how this works. Now, it'll be the committee's job to create that. But even in doing this, I wanted to say it was challenging to think, how do we work within our existing policies and get something like this? So that'll be task one, is for this group to define their process, but with that end in mind, efficient and expedited closure, because I think that's what parents are entitled to when they make inquiries. Thank you, Mary Beth. We can go back up. Board members, some of you have expressed interest in different areas, so there's no penalty. Some of you are serving in great capacities already. And again, we probably will invite some staff into these subcommittees and parents as well. But is there a board member that would be willing to be the lead in this season for this ad hoc committee on policy and procedure subcommittee?
I would be happy to support a lead.
I got
A
you.
leading board member.
You'd be willing to be number 2 in this team.
I'd be happy to. I think the website redesign is going to be a mighty effort. So
yes,
probably would focus, you know,
in your energy, and I would say a dogged return to focus will be helpful as a number 2. That's great. I realized on here, it might be very wise also for this team to have our executive director, who knows almost every policy, handbook, and procedure. Dr. Scott, are you one willing to obviously serve on this team?
Yes,
You wouldn't
always,
be a voting member, but boy, you're integral.
always willing to be the hands for the committee.
Any other board member willing to take the lead? I'll just tip my hand because this is so important. I'm willing to use the best of my time to do it, but I don't want to take away from anyone else. But that means even for in-person meetings coming to our school during hours or after hours, I'm willing to make that commitment. But I don't want to step on any other board member who was thinking, no, I definitely want to, jump on this one. But again, this is a chance to be that if you would like to. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. So anyone else feeling they want to take the lead on this one? Then if no one objects, I'm going to just forecast myself on here as well. It's a neat chance for me to get to know some parents.
Chairman Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I invoke my rights under the Brown Act right now?
Yeah, who is speaking, please?
This is Lynn, a parent.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm wanting to invoke my right as a parent under the Brown Act for public participation. Under the Brown Act, it mandates that the agendas for regular meeting allow for 2 types of public comment periods. The first is the general audience comment period, which is part of the general meeting where the public can comment on any items of interest that is within the subject matter of the jurisdiction. And that's just typically the general audience comment period. The second type, which I'm invoking my right of public comment period, is the specific comment period pertaining to items on the agenda. The Brown Act requires the legislative body, you, the board, to allow these specific comment periods on the agenda items to occur prior to or during the members or meetings consideration of that item. That's under section 54954.3. And typically all the board members meetings that I've been to for city council district meetings, they all open to public comments before for consideration before they speak on it or before they make an action or take action on it. And I'm invoking my rights right now. And if somebody can clarify whether we are allowed to or we don't have that right, please clarify. Thank you.
Yes, I'll let Nick answer that. And my leaning is, of course, and this is a perfect example. Nick, would you clarify that and respond to that?
Yeah, sure. Ms. Riddle is correct. The initial public comment period is for any item that is not appearing on the agenda. And then during each agendized item, the public is also required to be allowed to comment before the vote is taken. It doesn't matter whether it's before the motion is made or after the motion is made, but it does have to be allowed before the actual vote.
And is it for 3 minutes as well?
I would guess 3 minutes is probably a good courtesy to whoever might be next. Is that enough for you, Lynn?
Yes, and if it is, I'd like to make my comment.
Yes, please.
I have issues with the governance committee where it's with Doug Houston, Jolene Smith, and Dr. Scott, mostly the two board members, because there's been a document floating that there's a conflict of interest between Doug Houston, Jolene Smith, and Dr. Scott together. And I feel like those three together is the majority. And with the conflict of interest, that is in clear violation of IIA's policy. So I prefer, and I'm actually requesting that it not be the majority.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you. This is a good chance to invite other parents and or public on this topic of the Policy Procedures Subcommittee to have a word. Any others that would like to address the board and bring comments?
Hey, Doug, I would like to take some time to speak if you don't mind. I had a question regarding the closed session. Exactly, I don't know how much detail you could go into, but exactly what was discussed, what was the topic? And my understanding is that only board members are allowed to go into the closed session. And does that mean Dr. Michael Scott is on the board as well? Number one. Number two.
Answer that if you'd like, Mr. Houston.
And then number two, Kennedy Rocker was also invited to go into the closed session. And how does that come about?
Pardon me, Doug. This time for open comments are really just for the item that's up for discussion. I think Anthony has good questions. I'd love to meet with him. Anthony, if you could contact me at my office. The questions you're asking right now are more questions for open comments. They're not an agenda item. This time is spent for agenda items. Nick, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And in short, the answer is the board chair can invite in anybody he or she would like to close session.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Any other insight, thoughts, or questions from parents or public related to the Policy Procedure Subcommittee, either concept or even as we've defined it here? We certainly open your thoughts.
I do have another question, actually, maybe two more. For the risk management position, will it is it defined yet who that person will report to? Because a lot of the complaints are directed at the executive director, Michael Scott. So is that position going to report directly to the board, since for all the complaints that filter through? Because if it goes to reports to Principal Trung, now he's under the executive director, and what can Principal Trung do? This is the part of the problem. I mean, part of the problem is that the school never defined anything. We don't even have a parent handbook or employee handbook for that matter. So this is the problem, that you need to clearly define who the risk management position is going to report to. And I'm not sure if the board understands the risk management position. Is it going to be part of HR? Is it risk management? The only reason I'm asking is because I worked in risk management as a safety officer. So I kind of understand the position, but the way it's designed is very complicated. You're asking that risk management to do HR, but it's not. It's very confusing how it's laid out. And I think it needs to be more clearly defined. Is it doing HR's job, or is it doing compliance with regulatory and not personnel? And that needs to be more clearly defined. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Good insight. And we won't be taking action on that particular one. We just want to introduce the concept right now and the need. And when we do have those roles fulfilled, they'll certainly participate in this area. But good insight. And this is that role could be more than one person. That's a lot of hats to wear. Good insight. Any other public before we move forward with this?
Yes,
Annie?
this is Annie. I'd like to make a comment. I do appreciate board member Freeman mentioned about closure for all the questions from the parents. My children in third grade, this is already halfway down third grade. They've been through half of the school year with no door, and we have some of the safety issue we raised at the very, very first board meeting, and half year down the road, still no answer. I really hope the board can work on some of this closure. There has to be a time frame to answer parents' question. It's my children's precious third grade. They will never have this again. They spent the last year, their second grade, online, remotely, whole year. I wouldn't say they lost it. We did our best. But this is third year, they're in person. They will only go through this once. Please appreciate that. And you guys are using our hard-earned tax dollar. Okay, that's what all the staff and the teacher, including Mrs. Scott, Mr. Scott, you're all paid by us. You should be responsible to us, the parents. We pay your salary. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. I did take away from that both those points. Very good, especially answering in a good and a proper time frame, and we're responsible to all of us, board included, which is parents. Any others before we go forward? Because I'll probably call for a motion just a moment on that. All right, thank you. Great insight too. I love that collaborative nature that Miller was talking about. So what I want to do is frame it this way. I would frame it this way. I'll look for a motion to establish an ad hoc committee for policy and procedures as defined in the definition with the additions that board members pointed out. Would I be able to get a motion from someone to that effect?
I motion it.
Thank you, Brett. I'll second that one. And just to say thank you, let's do a roll call vote on that, please. Starting with Brett Freeman.
Aye.
Doug Husen is aye. Ethan Kay.
Aye.
Dr. Jolene Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Edward Watson.
Aye.
And Miller Zhang.
Aye.
Thank you. So nice. We have that subcommittee, and I will be on it starting tomorrow. And thank you for all, and parents through PTO will be surveying as well for participation. Next, maybe a shorter discussion. This one would be helpful, Ethan, because I'll ask you to amplify it, but it's an employee. I use the term escalation subcommittee, and I use that. Don't know if it's the right handle, but I'll tell you why. This would be a team that exists as a bypass valve, and that was your words, Ethan, that I like so much, for employees who have exhausted their normal chain of command and would like to have a confidential issue raised with the board. So they would get access to a couple of board members. What they do and say would be completely confidential. And it would be almost in that if you were a employee, some of you have heard the term whistleblower. It has a number of connotations, but it's when you're just frustrated, you can't seem to get what you are trying to express heard by the people who you report to, or even their senior person. This is your bypass valve then, and it So Ethan, amplify why you thought this was necessary, what you were hearing from either parents or maybe some confusion in our organization, and why this might be helpful.
So thank you so much. Actually, there's parents based upon the prior, I believe the proposed policy change in the employee handbook at the last board meeting. There was, I believe, confusion of, okay, if the complaints are at a certain position, and if that position is being stopped, is making final judgment, then where do we, as a policy, how do we address those complaints? Right now, there are complaints against Dr. Michael Scott. And so how do we properly process them and address them? I do agree with the concept of now this is I am a little bit outside my scope and knowledge about the concept of I do understand the concept of whistleblower, but how do organizations, large organizations, how do they handle this? Clearly, based on the diagram, there is clearly an attorney, but needed, and a couple board members. But should there be other individuals involved inside the organization or outside the organization? This comes a lot like what some of the other subcommittees as, like, who at the end of the day, what action is to be done? So there is a complaint, and it cannot get a result. And more importantly, at what point is some of the issues being are not being handled by this subcommittee, where people feel it's this issue, but it's really not this. It's not this. It needs to be really dealt with by those in the prior policy. So further thought definitely needs to be taken in place for this. But the acknowledgement of the subcommittee to actually formally address this is quite vital.
Right. Thank you. Good questions. I don't have answers yet, but those are great considerations within this. Other board members, your thoughts and observations or insight on the value of this committee?
It's very valuable. I mean, we have the instance currently, so I would think that I'm sure a lot of employees would love to be able to make their voices heard, and they would not want to make their voices heard to other employees or their superiors. So this would be a way for that to happen.
One thought on that too, Edward, and it dovetails with what Ethan said. I wonder if there might be a person from our county board or a third party, someone, obviously the attorney, if we put an attorney in there, it's helpful for an employee to get some reflection from a legal standpoint. Hey, you have a cause, you don't have a cause, but the attorney works for us, the board. And I wonder if that's enough, if there needs to be an ombudsman, a third party that's not even involved with us necessarily. We might seek some direction on that to make sure it's the most fair possible bypass valve for an employee. I don't think it'll be used often, to be honest, but we have some issues that have already arisen in the first year that would have been perfect for this group to deal with, bubble up to the board, and then bring to resolution. And then, a employee always has outside opportunity. Every one of us is a citizen of California. We have legal rights, but this is to give them the best opportunity when they feel like something's been exhausted internally. Nick, reflection on this from your perspective? We're probably, if we do these things, we're going to be operating honestly a little bit maybe better or ahead of our size and our age. We're going to stretch ourselves to get better than maybe the average charter is at 9 months in.
Well, absolutely agree with the last part that you just said, Mr. Houston, that you are learning a lot more in your first year, partly because you're a larger school than most first-year charter schools. And that's also, of course, one of the benefits of being a larger school, one of the commandments that I have for IIA. But it is true that not that many charter schools have both outside counsel. Most charter schools do have outside counsel as well as an ombudsman. I think it's a very positive thing to have both. As you put it, you're paying your counsel, your outside counsel, but they have one perspective that's very legalistic. You also want to make sure that you have another person who's independent of that person, who is giving you a school-based independent view. It could be somebody who's in the community, but not a parent of the school. It might even be a parent of the school, but somebody who's independent of the legal counsel, who is you're relying on for strictly legal advice. So I applaud the idea to have both on the committee.
This is helpful, talking these things out and trying to put them on paper. So they really get legs and have strength. Other board members, before we invite some of our parents and public to give some reflection.
Should the HR manager be a non-voting member, I guess, or will they just be invited in a supervisor or an advisory role?
I think the distinction between staff and voting members of a subcommittee is pretty blurry, because if you think about it, what a subcommittee is doing is recommending in its votes to the committee, and then the committee is recommending to the full board its decision based upon this committee's recommendation. So you've got two recommendations before you get to the one body that it makes the overall rules or policies for the school, and that is the board. Of course, you want your subcommittees and your committees to be empowered to have actionable, to have power to make votes, but the votes are technically recommendations to the full board. So I think it's a great idea to have staff as part of the conversation. They often have the most information about what is germane to the discussion at hand. Whether you have that staff member as a voting member or just as staff to the subcommittee, I think is a choice that's not as important. Important to have those people as part of the conversation, but it's not as important, in my personal opinion, whether you make them voting members of the subcommittee or staff to the subcommittee.
On the HR question, HR tends to be, within any organization, the place where people escalate. They go to their direct superior, then they tend to take their issue to HR. I would like to keep HR out of this until it becomes a need. I want it to be kind of pure, if I could use that word. It's again completely confidential. It's the bypass. It's the I got to take this outside the organization slightly. With an ombudsman in there, unless somebody disagrees. Say, board members, if you think I know HR can be super valuable. That is one of the roles they play for the entire organization. But I see this as, even when that's exhausted, I even went to our HR person, and I don't think they get me. They don't understand what I'm going through. I think it's kind of.
The reason I mention it is because I think we need an employee handbook subject matter expert on the committee, someone with HR background, because if you have members with no HR background making decisions, that could be very dangerous.
I see that. And you know what? It may be the board member who's leading this and takes on the initial conversation that says, are you comfortable with me having the HR representative here? If they go, no, that worries me. But I think you're right. By the way, the first job of this subcommittee is to review the employee handbook. It exists, by the way. I know I heard earlier a parent mention it doesn't exist. Trust me, it exists. You may not have seen it because you're not an employee, but we can certainly make it available to you. And I believe it may already be on the website. So that would be great. I want to just recognize that there is the opportunity for public to comment on this, because we're going to take action in a moment after we define maybe who would like to volunteer to take the lead, who would be willing to be a second board member on this. Just public and parents, if that's you and you do want to say something, you'll get an opportunity in a moment, so be prepared. Is there a board member that would be willing in this season, because it's again an ad hoc committee? This one could become a regular standing committee, by the way. I could see that, but you know, circumstances will dictate it. Is there a board member willing to take the lead on this one? Or the second position as we did it last time?
I want to see where the facilities committee, because with the doors, it's requiring, it's going to require some time to work with our landlord. And so I was hoping to have a better clarity earlier this week, as we had a executive director's ad hoc meeting last Friday regarding it, and just really trying to get this doors situation rectified. So I want to see where that lands before also chairing the finance committee, as well, as we're going to be diving right into each and every single line item.
Let's note that, and thank you for your heart to say, I see it's important. And again, this one, after reviewing the handbook, may sit idle for many, many, many months. You know, I think there is an issue on the table right now they'll probably have to dive into, but
Doug, if no one else is going to do, I mean, I'll volunteer. I think that's another one I'm doing as well, but you know,
and thank you, because you're on that all important. If you
I speak with a lot of the employees anyway on a regular basis, so
I think you've got access. Thank you, Edward. That would be so nice for you to be available to do that. And I think this is more of a be available, although there is some initial work to start. I do know this, that we could leave that second position open. Glenn is not here, but expressed interest in it, and I can't obviously nominate him without him. So let's leave it open with the intention we'll put a second in there as well. And then we do have access to Anthony already. He's a yes. And of course, he's a paid yes. So use him as needed. And then let's recruit an ombudsman outside our organization. And you know, I'm not forecasting this, I'm not saying that, but sometimes people have a heart for our school. Anthony, you're one that, you don't have children here, but you obviously have a heart for education in this particular type. I'm not saying it is you, but you know, Edward, you can go out and survey and find somebody in that kind of capacity that has wisdom, maybe some experience in this area, and has a heart for our school, and of course, availability when it's needed. So that could really do it. Okay, public or parents, is there anybody that wants to comment? By the way, thank you for going so long and being so passionate about our school. Anyone with some insight, wisdom, or thoughts, or even a question for the board?
Yes, my name is Lynn. I do.
Lynn first, and then I think there is somebody second.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to strongly suggest that the board members that have been brought up to have conflict of interest not be part of this bypass committee, just because if you're trying to gain parents' confidence, it needs to be neutral stance, not issues of conflict of interest being part of this, and then it just perpetuates the problem. Number two is the legal counsel as part of this bypass committee. The only reason I'm concerned that it might be a conflict of interest is now is the legal counsel that's going to sit in going to represent the executive director if there's a complaint against the executive director since he works for the school, or is he going to provide counsel or like legal, I don't know, directions to the employee that is bringing up the complaint? Now that's going to be a conflict of interest. So it needs to possibly not be part of it and be brought in later on. I'm not sure, but I can see this becoming an issue. Third, let me see, the parent student handbook. I know Doug had mentioned it. We don't have a parent student handbook. There was no parent student handbook that was given to any parents at all, and it's not on the website at all. there is an employee handbook, but that doesn't pertain to the parents or the student. So I just want to clear that up because you mentioned that. Thank you.
You're muted, Doug.
Oops, my fault. Thank you, Lynn, for each of those insights. I took some notes on those. So we're weighing those out. And again, the formation of this, I think, is the most important. And then tweaking it to be the best it can be, but good. Any other parents? Thank you for that. Or public, rather.
I would like to speak, please.
Thank you, Edwin.
So first of all, I want to say thank you, Lynn, for bringing up the fact that parents have the ability and I guess the right per the Brown Act to speak before a agenda item is voted on. I'm thanking you because I wasn't aware of that. Secondly, to be honest, at this very moment, I'm a little disheartened because I have brought up stuff before and I was under the impression that they could only be spoken, that we could only speak during the first public comment time, so 3 minutes. Thirdly, to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in I'm sorry, Doug, but I'm disappointed in you because I brought this up in August that I had issues and that I was specifically bringing it to the board because I didn't know who else to go to. There have been times in past meetings where there were stuff discussed and I would obviously I'd like to have asked about it, but that was never given freely as an option, even though I know that I have asked and I believe other parents have asked too. I believe Maureen Cox from OCDE is here on this meeting. So I'm glad that I'm hoping she's hearing this, but I'm just disappointed in that because there's a lot of opportunity that was missed since August for parents to comment on things before they were voted upon. Now, this brings into this current subcommittee that you're talking about, which I agree with what Lynn just said. It needs to have people that have not had complaints or concerns discussed about. I am glad that Dr. Watson has offered his time for that. I also share the same concern about possibly that attorney, but I believe, Doug, you actually had mentioned that too earlier. So I believe that was also addressed as well. So that's good that that's been mentioned. But yes, I think especially that committee, given what's been going on recently, and as I said, stuff that even myself and other parents have brought up before, this would be important to make sure that it's as much as possible above reproach. It's kind of all that I've been asking for since August 31st. So just to reiterate, I am quite disheartened right now from this, but I'm glad that I had this opportunity to say this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? You just have to unmute because I can't see all 4 screens. Anybody else before we make a motion? Wonderful.
Hi, may I speak?
Is that Michelle Lee?
Yes, hi, this is Michelle Lee. I am a former IIA parent who still has a strong interest in the school. So I applaud the board for creating an employee escalation committee. I think it's absolutely needed. I think it's tragic that the teachers felt the need to write an anonymous letter and that there was an attempt for, I would say, to request all the teachers to sign that they were not the author of the letter. So definitely something needs to change regarding employee complaints. I do think that a neutral third party should be on the committee because as of now, we don't know if there's any accountability for confidentiality. Speaking from personal experience, I emailed the board regarding concerns that I had, and I was very surprised that in the reply, the person I had a concern about was CC'd on the email so that they could read my original email. So I'm sure I'm not the only parent who feels this way, and likely the teachers also feel this way, which is why there was an anonymous letter submitted. So one, I think a third party should be on this committee, and 2, perhaps parents should also be on the committee. I noticed on the other subcommittee, there was space for a parent listed, but there's not a space for a parent on this committee. And I do have a question regarding the parents on the committees. How are they chosen? Do they apply? Is there an open application? Or are they invited?
Thank you, Michelle, and I appreciate that. And some of those will be answered by the committees, but in general, the answer is we rely on our PTO to help us identify interested parents, and certainly can be interviewed, surveyed, invited. Do that. That's really wonderful. Then here's how the motion would be framed in my mind. A motion to establish the ad hoc employee escalation subcommittee with Edward Watson leading, second board position open, but to be filled as soon as possible, including at this time the council that we have available and a party ombudsman. It's not locked in stone, of course. This subcommittee can change over time, but that's what we would see it as. Then again, for the purpose that exists as a bypass valve for employees, not for parents, that's different. Employees who have exhausted their normal chain of command and would like to confidentially raise an issue with the board. Could I ask for a motion?
Ethan motions.
Thank you, Ethan. Second, please.
I second.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Then a roll call vote. Brett Freeman.
Aye.
Doug Husen is aye. Ethan Kay.
Aye.
Dr. Jolene Smith.
Aye.
Edward Watson.
Aye.
And Miller. Sean.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Wonderful. The risk management regulatory compliance officer's idea form right now, it's not actually part of our action and discussion tonight. So that really brings us then to our last item, any recommendations by the board for our executive director prior to a motion for adjournment.
Doug, I don't know when the last time, I know a while ago I saw an organizational chart, but I don't remember when that was. And you know, we have a new HR, we have director of instruction. So I was wondering maybe eventually creating some type of a new org chart hierarchy or whatnot. That'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you. And I saw Dr. Scott taking a note on that and nodding north and south. And thank you for thinking of that. That's helpful to me. And I love it in picture form with boxes and reporting structure. So thank you. Other board members, any recommendation for our executive director or for your chairman? I'll take recommendations always from this board. Wow.
Just to comment on that compliance, risk management compliance person, I don't think they should be in HR. I think they should be independent. It's my personal opinion.
Okay. And I think we'll get some opportunity to talk about that a little bit more within our next board meeting. But I want to gather some info and try to shape that up so that we have something tangible for the board to either advise on or execute on. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, wonderful. Then what I'll do prior to asking for a motion for adjournment is to thank parents, especially all public, and then also Maureen Cox for joining us from OCD, Orange County Board of Education as well. Could I ask for a motion for adjournment then?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Brad. And a second, please.
I second.
Second.
Okay, it looks like we got a second from Edward and then also from Miller and for Dr. Smith. And I found out, I guess it's not necessary to necessarily roll call vote out on adjournment, but let's do it anyway. In favor, Brett Freeman.
Aye.
And Doug Husen is yes. And Ethan Kay.
Aye.
And Dr. Jolene Smith.
Aye.
Dr. Ed Watson.
Aye.
And Miller John.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We can stop the recording then. Mary Beth, thanks for administrating tonight. Thank you again for all guests and parents especially.